Vast herds of elk replay the ancient rituals of death and rebirth. Bighorn sheep struggle for survival during the harsh Colorado winter. A mule deer glides silently across a crystalline stream. Open meadows burst forth with a dazzling bouquet of spring wildflowers. Light dances across a sheer rock face, issuing a challenge to the adventurous climber. Two miles up, the fragile world of the alpine tundra hugs the gentle hills along Trail Ridge Road. Higher still are the peaks, uplifted and carved by glaciers into a visual symphony of pinnacles. This magnificent and sublime range is the Rocky Mountains. International Video Network welcomes you on this video tour of Rocky Mountain National Park, the rooftop of the continent. The Rocky Mountain Range extends almost the entire length of the North American continent. Without this range, which affects weather patterns, the interior of the U.S. would be a vast desert from coast to coast, much like Australia. In the state of Colorado, the Rockies reach their zenith, with many of the peaks over 2 miles high. The showcase of the Rocky Mountain Range in north-central Colorado is the Rocky Mountain National Park, 414 square miles of pristine mountain landscape. What more than 2.6 million visitors to the park come to see is some of the best mountain scenery in the world. Each day, light, clouds, and rocks combine to put on a unique visual show. Each day, each hour is different. A mountain panorama can be seen 1,000 times, and every time it will be different. The park offers a variety of mountain scenery. There are rugged, snow-capped peaks. Mountain glaciers sit in their amphitheater-like cirques or bowls. Ancient eroded volcanoes provide a surreal setting of desolate isolation. Over time, metamorphic ridges have been worn and eroded into a stunning array of shapes. And there are the smooth lines of lesser eroded hills above the tree line. Perhaps the most spectacular scenery lies along the Continental Divide. The divide runs through the park, separating the waters that flow toward the Atlantic Ocean from those that flow toward the Pacific. The peaks along the divide are distinctive. They are the most dramatic, the most majestic. It is here that the westerly air masses are waylaid among the peaks. Along the divide, it is as if nature has gone crazy, as if some titanic struggle is in progress, as the winds swirl, twist, and blast the barren rocks with an endless vengeance. Along the divide, the peaks have names, like Shark's Tooth, Flat Top Mountain, Little Matterhorn, and Crack Top. In fact, in the park there are 115 named mountains or peaks, with 78 of them over 12,000 feet high. In time, the peaks and their names become like old friends. Each mountain has its own personality. What is its mood in a storm, at sunset? One of the most remarkable features of the park is that it is often possible to rise above the clouds. There is little that compares with the serene beauty here. There is an unmatched purity to the air, and a subtle feeling of being where only the gods may soar. But there is more to the park than spectacular scenery. It is also a vast wilderness, a living, complex ecosystem, and home to a great diversity of wildlife. The majority of the park is inaccessible by car, thereby ensuring a suitable habitat for the typical North American mountain fauna. Certainly the most visible of the park's animals are the large herds of hoofed mammals, which are adapted to the activity of traveling long distances with ease and grace, such as these elk, a member of the deer family. As a group, they eat large amounts of forage and have complex ruminant stomachs. This allows them to feed intensely for short periods of time, and then retreat to safety and cover to leisurely digest their food. The elk herds in the park are often large, and experienced elk watchers know they are most easily seen at dawn and dusk, their most active times. Another member of the deer family in the park is the mule deer. This western species is easily recognized by its large ears and is commonly spotted in small openings and along lower streams. Its diet is largely shrubbery, and it is in little competition for food with the elk or the park's other hooved mammal, the bighorn sheep. The bighorn sheep is the wildlife symbol of the Rocky Mountains, and Rocky Mountain National Park in particular. Unlike members of the deer family, which shed their racks each fall, the male bighorns, or rams, do not shed their horns. These herd animals are primarily grass feeders, with keen eyesight to alert them to potential danger. Whereas the herd animals are easily spotted. Their predators are nearly invisible. The mountain lion, or puma, is certainly the consummate predator of the park. Its main prey is the abundant mule deer. The park also has a sizable population of coyotes. In addition to being important scavengers, they are a significant hunter of small mammals, and in small groups can bring down a sick or injured elk or deer.
What we want to do is go down into Wild Basin.
Rocky Mountain National Park also has a small black bear population, and its story is typical of high mountain fauna. Research is an important component in the management of any natural resource, like the land and animals of a national park. The park team strives to better understand the behavior and conditions of its native inhabitants.
Down there in radio track and try to locate her in Wild Basin, see what she's up to.
Hank McCutcheon has been studying the park's bear population for a number of years. The goal is to radio color each of the animals in order to understand their behavior and movement in the park.
Here in the park, we're at very extremely high elevations. The habitat is pretty sparse for bears. It's marginal for bears, and so the bears have a low reproductive rate. There are only about 30 to 35 bears in the park. For density of one bear for 10-12 square miles. Food habits are mostly dependent upon berries for food, but they also work ants, work ant colonies, and feed on emerging green vegetation in the spring. For Rocky Mountain National Park, bears simply are not a problem. I'm finding that the bears are extremely shy. They avoid people and stay away from visitor use areas.
One of the bears, a small female, has lost her radio collar. The rangers were lucky enough to snare the animal, but will have to tranquilize the bear with a dart gun so that her condition can be checked and the collar replaced. Once down, the team makes sure the snare did no damage. Then the radio collar is fitted and secured. Finally, the animal's measurements are taken. Hank is pleased with the results.
We got some measurements on her. She's lost a lot of weight. Of course, she's had a cub this year. The last time I caught her, she weighed 136 pounds, and now she weighs 100 pounds. Even though this is a small bear, she's very, very powerful and dangerous. And yet, getting close to them somehow is quite a thrill. It's quite a thrill to work with the animals. So I feel good about her. She's a good bear. They're a superb animal. Deserve all the conservation they can get.
Not all the predator species in the park do their hunting from the ground. In recent years, there has been a resurgence of raptors. Golden eagles, falcons, and hawks are now all successfully breeding in the park. Often, their prey is one of the many small mammals who live here. The squirrel family is well represented. In lower elevations, there are chipmunks, tufted-eared Abert squirrels, and ground squirrels. Most of these animals are associated with the park's numerous open spaces. Here, one also finds the Nuttall's cottontail. At the higher elevations is a cousin of the rabbit, the tiny pika. This Disney-like creature is found among the rocks, as is the larger marmot. The marmot is the largest of the squirrels in the park, and they love basking in the sunlight, particularly in the morning. One of the more interesting rodents found here is the porcupine. These animals range throughout all the terrestrial habitats in the park. Unlike their reputation, they are not able to throw their quills, but a brush with these lumbering creatures will be a painful experience. Many a predator has died from a mouthful of quills. The park and its wildlife are accessible from a network of state and U.S. highways. Most visitors arrive through one of the two eastern entrance stations. Paved roads wind through big, open valleys and lead up to the high mountain points of interest. This part of the park is called the Eastern Slope. It is quite dry on this side of the Continental Divide. In fact, conditions might be termed high mountain desert, with pines thinly blanketing the rocky slopes. Trail Ridge Road heads west to the high country. Around 11,000 feet, the trees disappear and give way to the fragile world of the alpine tundra. Finally, the road crosses the Continental Divide. This is the western slope of the park. This part of the park is much wetter. The tree stands are denser. Underneath are dew-laden ferns and mosses. Some of the flowers associated with bogs and swamps are present. One of the most striking is the deep blue gentian. The western slope has the distinction of containing the headwaters of the Colorado River. Starting as a mere trickle, the river quickly expands to a typical mountain stream. A hiking trail runs beside the early stages of the river. Along its course are the remains of the mining town of Lulu City. Finally, the river leaves the park, beginning its 1,450-mile journey to the Pacific, providing water for most of the southwestern United States. While most people experience the park in summer, each season has something special to offer. Winter is probably the most misunderstood season in the Rockies. Most winter days in the park are sunny, crisp, and not necessarily very cold. There is a pristine quality to the land. Rapidly moving water darts in and out of the veneer of ice that covers the park's streams. The mantle of snow adds majesty to the entire park. While the lower elevations are often calm and peaceful, the high peaks are another matter. Especially along the Divide, hurricane-force winds are often the rule. The fierce winds and snows present a different kind of beauty and awe at the power of nature. However, snow conditions can also lead to winter pleasure. Rocky Mountain National Park has a downhill ski slope and lodge called Hidden Valley. It has 24 runs serviced by 4 lifts. It is one of the few eastern slope ski areas in Colorado. With winter lasting 5 months, winter ecology is an important aspect of the park. How does life survive in the snow and cold? From Hidden Valley, Jean Munkrath leads a group of snowshoers to explore just such questions.
Part of what I do is to assign everybody that's coming along a role as either a plant or an animal. And the reason I do that is throughout the walk I'm going to be examining the different kinds of snow and how those different kinds of snows are formed. But if we were plants or animals, each different kind of snow would have a very important impact on our ability to survive the winter and to cope with the cold and the snow. And so by assigning those different animal roles, some of the people, if they were an animal or thinking in that kind of capacity, having short legs or long legs or being after a certain kind of food or shelter, their life's going to be kind of dependent on the different kinds of snow, whether they're going to make it or not.
The group's destination is a snow pit. Here, Jean can demonstrate the different kinds of snow by sliding a card through each layer. Some layers are hard, others are powder, and still others are slushy. Each kind of snow means something to the different species in the park.
As small animals, which ones of you are weasels, shrews, and pocket gophers? Raise your hand. You're a small animal. Okay. As those animals, you are dependent on the snow because you live underneath the snow. If you live in an area like the barren meadow we crossed earlier, you would not last very long. Snow is a blanket of insulation. Without snow in the wintertime, these smaller creatures would freeze to death. Snow is a necessity for you. Api, or snow on the ground, can change to different kinds of snow. Generally, the snow brings a platform up. We're walking at a higher level now than we would at this very spot in the summertime. If you look behind you, you'll notice there's some scars on the aspen trees. Those scars are from an animal. One of you.
A deer.
A deer, you're close, a big deer.
An elk.
An elk. Who's the elk today? Okay, you were out here last night. We caught you chewing on the aspen. That's where your source of food is in the wintertime. Now, one of the advantages of the snow for you is that it's a platform. You can now get higher up on the aspen to get more bark that would be out of your reach in other months of the year. So Api in general is very useful. If you're a hibernator, like Bridget here, you're a black bear, right? You sleep underneath the snow, and again, you need the snow as insulation to keep warm. So these are just a few of the snowy layers that can affect an animal's survival. There's all kinds of different snow out here.
Further exploration will show the impact snow has on the park's plants. Often, the heaviest snows in the Rockies are gentle affairs. A silence falls over the land. All tracks, all records of past activities are wiped clean. The pines are ready to shoulder their burden of snow. The elk yard together. It is a survival technique to keep the snow matted down. In the winter silence, the bighorn sheep paw through the snow to reach the tufts of old grass buried below. At a lower elevation, the mule deer engage in a last bit of browsing. The larger wild things seem to find comfort in numbers during a storm. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the eerie shriek of a raven. A life has left the park. During storms, weaker animals can die. This time, it was an elk. Ravens and magpies move in. Coyotes begin to circle. This is all part of the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of life and death, the rhythm of the Rockies in winter. If death is a part of winter, spring is the season of rebirth. The change does not happen all at once. It starts in the lowland meadows with the blooming of the pale purple pasque flowers. Lowland here is 8,000 feet. During April, the days start warming. The pasque flowers are followed by a bouquet of blooms. Even cactus flower in the park. Spring is a rushed season at high elevation. Suddenly the birds return. The stunning mountain bluebird is back. Other birds, like the junco, will soon depart. The birds of prey begin their nesting. Along the streams, the pussy willows rush to join the parade of blossoms. After a hard winter, it is time for the elk to revitalize themselves and prepare for the upcoming calving season. The deer begin their annual growth of fresh antlers as they too take advantage of spring's new vegetation. In the high country, there is no true spring. Here, the land seems to resist all beckoning from below to join the celebration of rebirth. But its time will soon come. For the rangers, it's time to get ready for another high season. Here at Sheep Lake Information Station, Judy Rosen prepares Bob Stevenson for the summer visitors.
Typically in late May and early July, they come down between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. because they're diurnal and they like to get back up to the high country before the sun sets. And so now you can see that they're out there in the meadow.
Yeah.
And they like to stay away from people as much as they can because people, that increases their anxiety and their susceptibility to diseases and all kinds of stuff because it's in a way a form of harassment to the sheep. Trying to cross the road, sometimes they'll pace and they'll go back and forth, spend half a day just trying to get down into the meadow. And there'll be so many people up and down this road that they'll never make it out into the meadow and they'll go back before they come down. And so resource managers have been exploring all different kinds of alternatives to try and ease the congestion around this area so sheep can get freely into the meadow.
One annual event in the park marks the transition between spring and summer. It's the plowing of Trail Ridge Road. Covered and snow-packed since early November, its opening before Memorial Day heralds the beginning of access to the high country. It takes 8 pieces of heavy snow-removing equipment to clear the only continuous road above 12,000 feet in the world. Henry Smith has been clearing the famous road for over 20 years.
Just the satisfaction of coming up here and plowing this snow out every year, so that we can get the visitors across, and it's just the best job in the Park Service. I've been over the bank time or two. and that gets a little scary. But in the 23 years, we've never lost a piece of equipment or had anybody injured.
Summer is the busiest season in the park. Most visitors will pass through during the months of June, July, and August. The days are warm and the nights are cool. The air is dry. Nearly perfect days, one after another, invite activity. Such as rock climbing. The park has excellent challenges for all levels of skill. There is the more relaxed pastime of hiking. A riding stable gives visitors the chance to experience the park as early settlers might have done. The park has always been a refuge from the relentless heat on the plains below. By July, the sun has melted the snow off the peaks, leaving the high mountain glaciers as the only vestige of the storms 6 months ago. In the low meadows, a variety of wildflowers burst into bloom. These little patches of color are a symbolic reminder of the wilderness that once existed in the West, when the wolf and the grizzly bear were still honored members of the ecosystem. Perhaps because it is too harsh an environment for humans, the alpine tundra is still largely untouched. And when summer arrives, it signals the awakening of this land above the trees. The tundra transforms itself into a world of miniature beauty. Winter never truly departs. Even in July, the flowers often bloom against the backdrop of brilliant snow, surrounded by sublime peaks. The blooming tundra is a unique aspect of the park. But the true wilderness is not only alive during the day. A guided hike called Rocky After Dark educates park visitors about the wilderness at night. Ranger John Cole leads this program.
The hike that I'm going to take is geared more toward families and children and that type of thing.
John begins by inviting the participants to start thinking about animal senses, ones that might be useful at night.
How do animals see? How do they hear? How do they smell? Now, our mule deer here have large ears, and they can hear very well. So you take your ears and cup them behind your hands and fold your ears out and look upstream and then turn and look downstream and see if you don't hear a difference of the sounds.
Another important sense at night is smell.
This is a great habitat for animals, and there are animals here right now. In fact, there are probably 20 animals that can smell us right now, because to animals, humans stink. Yuck.
A favorite of the hike is the predator-prey game.
I'm going to take half the group over to the trail, and they will be the prey.
The prey group heads off and will hide somewhere just off the trail. After everyone is hidden, the other group comes along and starts spotting the prey.
No.
There's a red and white. There's one right there.
As night falls, the group will find their eyes adjusting to the decreased light. Further down the trail, they will listen for the sounds of night animals, including the howling of the coyotes. But what does an experience like this mean for the participants?
You get to see all sorts of night animals and, hear night sounds. And you just get to see everything a little bit differently.
I enjoyed the trip. I'd been in the park before, but never at night. So it's entirely different, I enjoyed listening to the quiet and then the things you thought, that you could hear that you wouldn't have probably picked up before because you'd have been paying attention to things with your eyes instead of listening.
Many believe that fall is the best season in the park. It is a time for slow meandering. The air is cool, but the sun is warm, setting the brilliant yellow aspens ablaze with color. Aspens are one of the few deciduous trees in the park, and therefore one of the only candidates to display fall color. The same meadows that offered a summer bouquet have given way to blazing stars and asters. The deer are healthy and radiant with their full racks of antlers. However, there is nothing more compelling than the fall mating ritual of the elk. Like the howling of the wolf, the bugling of the male elk seems to awaken in us, if only for a moment, a connection with Mother Earth we seem to have forgotten. This is what national parks are all about. A chance for us to get in touch with a part of our being that is wild and natural. The swirling movements of the elk herds are a window to the past and a mirror of our own early beginnings. Just as a year in the national park is a record of a greater natural rhythm. Man's impact on the park began a long time ago. Evidence found on Trail Ridge indicates Paleo-Indians visited the park 10 to 15,000 years ago. Later, the park became a summer hunting and gathering ground. It was also a safe haven for warring Plains Indian tribes. But the area captured little attention until the discovery of gold, drawing thousands of prospectors. In the mid-19th century, exploration of the park area began in earnest. Men like Major Stephen Long, William Byers, John Wesley Powell, and Joel Estes played major roles in the early discovery and development of the area. It was clear to these men that the land that would become Rocky Mountain National Park was a special place. As Joel Estes said on the first sighting of an open meadow area, "No words can describe our surprise, wonder, and joy at beholding such unexpected sights." By the 1870s, the area was becoming quite famous. Already an attraction for its natural beauty, now adventurous types were trying to climb Long's Peak. It was also becoming a favorite spot for Western photographers. As the Earl of Dunraven said in 1872, "Everything is huge and stupendous. Nature is formed in a larger mold than in other lands. All her actions are full of vigor and young life." By the late 19th century, it was clear that if the area had an economic future, its main resource would have to be its beauty. It would have to attract tourists. The most important figure in the history of Rocky Mountain National Park was Enos Mills. This ecologically sensitive man began urging the formation of a national park in 1908. This was a time of great American conservationists. The country was slowly waking up to the value of the wilderness it had wantonly exploited. Still, the idea of preservation was a controversial one. People would have to give up some traditional uses of their land. Nevertheless, in 1915, President Woodrow Wilson signed into law a bill setting aside 358.5 square miles to be known as Rocky Mountain National Park. In the early days, national parks were more like playgrounds than centers of environmental education and conservation. Animals were lured closer to the roads by salt licks. The predator species were exterminated to allow the elk, deer, and sheep to flourish. In 1920, work on Fall River Road was completed to connect the east and west sides of the park. By the late 20s, the park was a great success. In 1929, over 1,600 people climbed Long's Peak. Facilities and services for visitors had been built. Modern highways to the park were constructed. And finally, conservation was becoming an issue. After years of construction, Trail Ridge Road opened for travel in 1933. Said the park superintendent, "It is going to give you the quintessence of the Rockies in one view." By the 50s, the park was a monumental success. The allure of the mountains continues to be an ever-growing call to people city-weary, tired of the heat and the race to get ahead. As it is said, all who come to the mountains will find the peace that they are looking for. But the park has another kind of history, a history embracing hundreds of millions of years. Early in the planet's evolution, the ancestral Rockies appeared as islands rising above the vast seas that covered the North American continent. These were eventually eroded away. Around 50 million years ago, tremendous movement in the Earth's crust caused a major uplift, tilting the horizontal sedimentary rock upward. The results of this type of geologic action can clearly be seen today in the red sandstone foothills east of the park. However, these mountains were again worn down. Then, 5 to 10 million years ago, the most recent uplift occurred, raising the land over 1 mile and giving shape to the mountain range we know today. This revitalized the expansive river system for which the park is known. These energized rivers began the process of cutting canyons, and the canyons would become the starting point for an even more effective agent in shaping the topography of the park: glaciers. 20,000 years ago, continental glaciers moved southward, filling the park's valleys in all directions. As they moved through, separate, smaller glaciers, 10 to 15 miles long, remained in the valleys of the park. These were fed by tributary glaciers, which dramatically carved the high peaks and formed numerous cirques. The highest point in the park, Long's Peak, is a product of this glacial action. Near the top of Trail Ridge Road, the land has a different look from the rest of the park. Somewhat like the Scottish Highlands in appearance, the gently curving hills here are unglaciated. They were never sculpted by the powerful movements of ice that affected so much of the rest of the area. Old Fall River Road cuts through a valley once filled with ice. Below is Horseshoe Park, once the site of a glacial lake. Moraine Park is another example of an ancient lake bottom. From here, one can see the small glaciers that exist in the park today. However, these glaciers are unassociated with the ones that shaped the park so long ago. They are super-dense ice packs that never melt, a result of the accumulation of wind-blown snow along the Continental Divide in winter. Ecologically, Rocky Mountain National Park presents an interesting array of biotic communities, each home to a variety of mammals and bird life. The main factor affecting the park's communities is elevation. From the plains down below to the top of the Continental Divide is a distance of over 1 mile. Temperature, light, moisture, and wind are all determined to a large extent by elevation. At the lowest level of the park, from 6,000 to 9,000 feet, is the montane forest, or as it is sometimes called, the ponderosa pine woodland. This biocommunity is dominated by the ponderosa pine and has a park-like feeling to it. The East Side Visitors Center is set in a typical montane forest. Rising in elevation, the ponderosas give way to dense stands of Engelmann spruce and fir trees. This biotic community is called the subalpine forest. Birds abound here, like the Steller's jay and the Clark's nutcracker. At its highest elevation, the subalpine forest forms the tree line. Here, the winds have sculpted the trees into many interesting and dramatic shapes. Most of the energy in this ecosystem goes to support the trees. The opposite can be said for the park's highest and most unique ecosystem, the treeless tundra. Found above 11,000 feet, experiencing a bit of the Arctic tundra is a major reason for coming to the park. In all, the park contains 180 species of tundra plants. Neil Cohn enjoys telling people about this special place.
One of the things as we walk out onto the fell field here that I want you to be aware of is that damage to the tundra is almost exclusively done by repetition, not your weight. Remember that the elk walk on this. It's not that these plants aren't rugged. These are the toughest organisms in the world that live up here. It's just that they are pushed to the absolute razor's edge of biological life's ability to exist. And of course, it takes between 300 and 500 years at best guesses to recover. And Betty Willard, who is the world expert on the alpine tundra, did most of her studies right here in this park, suggests that that may be ludicrous, that it may be 5,000 years for this to recover. Now, these cushion plants, like this, grow very slowly. Remember that the growing season up here is only about 8 weeks. This little one here is about 3 inches across. I guess this little cushion plant right here, in the vicinity of 75 years old. Okay? Now we've got some of them out here that are looking like this. So some of these plants are pushing 300, 350 years in age. Okay? Conditions are severe here. They grow very slowly. Their strategy tends to be storage. Okay? See how that works? So, lie low to the ground, have a deep taproot, huddle together, all very just real sophisticated adaptations to survival with life on the edge. That's why the alpine tundra is a place not only of wonder for us in terms of sitting and saying this is an amazing thing to see, but it's a critical place to preserve.
Scattered throughout the park is a third type of treed ecosystem, the aspen woodland. The stands are never very large, but represent the early stage of reforestation, that which occurs after fires. The aspen groves are a favorite spot for many birds. Their quaking leaves allow light to touch the ground, often producing a luxurious understory of small plants. Another lesser community is called the shoreline or streambank community. Along the park's many rivers, bogs, and small lakes grow distinctive groups of plants composed of willows, alders, aspen, wetland grasses, and sedges. This system is home to the beaver, the largest rodent in North America. It is a mammal that is best seen in the early morning and just before dark. The final ecosystem in the park is the meadows. These are the grass-covered open areas. The first settlers of the region referred to these areas as parks. Hence the names Allen's Park, Estes Park, Horseshoe Park, and Moraine Park. The meadows are ecosystems with much diversity. They are favorite grazing spots for many of the park's larger mammals. Today, Rocky Mountain National Park has fulfilled all the expectations of those early pioneer naturalists who helped shape its destiny. Visitors to the park have quality experiences while still preserving the integrity of the delicate ecosystems. The infrastructure around the park has been built with taste. This includes the gateway to the park, the small town of Estes Park. It has all the necessary amenities and facilities, including 2 golf courses, fishing, and the famous Stanley Hotel. The Stanley was the inspiration for Stephen King's book, The Shining. Perhaps the ultimate physical challenge the park offers is the climb up Long's Peak. One must start early, at the crack of dawn, in order to reach the summit and get back down before nightfall. This is not a technically difficult climb, but it is one way to find out something about yourself, while at the same time experiencing everything Rocky Mountain National Park has to offer. Such was the challenge Susie, Ben, Rick, and Jonathan set for themselves.
This is Marge.
They were joined by Marge, a 64-year-old veteran climber of Longs Peak. The point of departure is the ranger station east of Longs Peak. The trail begins at 9,400 feet in the upper limits of the Ponderosa Pine Zone. The climb is an historic one, with many people losing their lives over the years. Today, in a typical season, 10,000 people will try to reach the summit, with about 65% reaching their goal. At first, the trail is smooth and not too difficult. After about an hour of upward hiking, a sparkling stream is a welcome place of rest and a chance for a snack. At about 9,600 feet, the long-needled pines give way to the Douglas firs and Engelmann spruce. Now the climb becomes steeper, as the trail begins to switch back and forth across the ascent. Marge has found her own steady pace and has begun hiking alone. Gradually, the group emerges from the trees and enters the world of the alpine tundra. They now get a look at the infamous diamond. This sheer wall is a major challenge for the experienced rock climbers, but the group will bypass it in their attempt to reach the summit. The views are now spectacular. Across the valley, to the east, rise the Twin Sisters. A trail forks to the left, leading to the aquamarine waters of Chasm Lake. Above is the east face of Longs Peak, including the immense cirque below the diamond. Off to the right is a broad valley containing a series of small ponds. These ponds have been created by permafrost, which seals the ground so that water cannot penetrate. During thaws, this water-saturated soil flows like concrete, producing the terraced effect, easily visible from above. From the tree line to the boulder field, their overnight destination, the trail winds dramatically through the open tundra.
I like the solitude and the freedom I feel when I'm up above timberline and there's no one else around. It just feels like there's a lot more open space. I like that freedom.
When I hike, it just allows my mind to just completely expand and explore, and I'm a total daydreamer when I'm hiking. I can't talk to anybody, I can't communicate. I just sing and dance and make up stories in my mind, and for some reason I can't do that unless I'm hiking.
This is heaven, and I really feel connected to the earth, and I just feel more at home here.
I grew up in Colorado, and I could see Longs Peak from our living room window. So Longs Peak and Rocky Mountain National Park have always been a favorite for me.
The biggest fear I have is that I won't be able to get up to the top. I'll get too tired, or I'll get altitude sickness or something.
Late afternoon, the group reaches the boulder field. They are now around 13,000 feet. It is a barren land covered with angular rocks shaped by frost action. While some will make the climb to the summit and back in one day, this group has decided to overnight just short of the keyhole and make the final assault to the top the next morning.
And then you go up the trough, and that's even steeper than the keyhole. I know it'll take me at least a good 2 hours.
Yeah. About 2 miles?
No, it's 1.5 miles.
But it's just real steep.
It's really steep.
As dawn breaks, the weather has changed. There is the feeling of a storm in the air.
There'll be rain off and on.
Still, the group decides to try for the summit. The first obstacle is the climb to the keyhole. This distinctive rock feature divides East Longs Peak from west. It is here that climbers are often faced with fierce winds as they move along the narrow ravine.
Did you hear that thunder when you come up?
Sure did.
Wow.
Hope it doesn't reach us.
As they reach the keyhole, the storm intensifies.
Watch the rock right there. Uh-oh. I think I'm going to head down.
The rocks are becoming too slippery, and the danger is too great. The decision is made to turn back.
We got up to that place where we decided to turn around, and I went through my usual, I don't want to go, I don't want to turn around, even though it's lightning and we could die and all that. And, but then something happened. I wasn't as disappointed. I started to feel just exhilarated for what we've done so far.
This can happen any time on Longs Peak. Now, I've been up here when we've had a beautiful day all morning, made the summit, started down, and got back to the keyhole. And the rain and the snow and everything just hit.
I was feeling pretty antisocial because I was just kind of disappointed. I didn't really feel like talking with anyone. I just felt just kind of bummed.
You feel so helpless. You're just this tiny little speck, you know, on this incredible foreboding power almost, and it's just incredible.
It was great going up the rocks towards the keyhole and to turn around and see this cloud come behind us and just engulf us in the cloud and the snow and the wind. It was just really wild. It was like nature you became part of nature going around.
Perhaps this is why we must have national parks, so we might have the opportunity to become part of nature once again. In its own special way, this is what Rocky Mountain National Park is all about. As the father of modern ecology, Aldo Leopold, once surmised, the mountains know everything. All we have to do is ask and listen for their answer.
Stay tuned for highlights of other Video Visits programs. World travel. Filled with action, excitement, and adventure. International Video Network's video visits are your ticket to the world. These exciting video programs will whisk you away to more than 50 fascinating destinations on 6 continents. Breathtaking photography heightens the beauty and grandeur of the world's greatest cities and countries. Entertaining as well as informative, video visits are a great way to relive memorable vacations, plan your next trip, or just to satisfy your curiosity of exotic locales. From the pulsating sounds of Carnival in Rio to the peaceful serenity of Ireland's countryside, each video visit will transport you to the actual location. Video visits also feature authentic ethnic music providing insights into the different cultures of the world. Whether it be an Irish colleen singing a traditional folk song, or the boisterous Oktoberfest in Munich. You'll examine the people of today's ever-changing world, discovering the similarities and differences that makes each of them unique, from the native Eskimos of Alaska to the Buddhist monks of China. Bring the world into your home by visiting such sites as all these and many more exciting destinations are waiting to be discovered by you now. Also available is the Reader's Digest Great National Park Series, Yosemite, Yellowstone, and the Grand Canyon. Crown jewels of America's national park system are available for your viewing pleasure. To start or expand your video travel library, order Video Visits or the Great National Park Series from your favorite retailer, mail order catalog, or by calling International Video Network at 415-866-1121 for the name of a distributor near you.